Christ is in our midst. Welcome to Spiritual Calisthenics. Today, on February 28th, we commemorate the holy, righteous John, Cassian the Confessor, as well as Saint Basil the Confessor, and Jonah, the righteous martyr of Lerios, and Kyranna, the new martyr of Thessaloniki. As I said before, for the Old Testament readings, I will not be reading all of them because obviously there's so much depth there. We'll be skipping over Isaiah primarily because the prophecies there are hard to extrapolate for just everyday reading. We will be reading from Proverbs because it is just good to hear the words of Proverbs, but we'll be focusing mostly on the history lessons found within Genesis. So regarding St. John Cassian, who is a phenomenal church father, note, if it is not a leap year, the hymns of St. John are transferred to the 28th. The saint was born about the year 350 and was, according to some, from Rome, according to others, from Dacia Pontitia, Dobrogia in present-day Romania. He was a learned man who had first served in the military. Later he forsook this life and became a monk in Bethlehem with his friend and fellow ascetic Yormanos of Dacia Pontica, whose memory is also celebrated today. Hearing the fame of the great fathers of Skete, they went to Egypt about the year 390. Their meetings with the famous monks of Skete are recorded in St. John's conferences. In the year 403, they went to Constantinople, where Cassian was ordained deacon by St. John Chrysostom. After the exile of St. John Chrysostom, Saints Cassian and Yormanos went to Rome with letters to Pope Innocent I in defense of the exiled Archbishop of Constantinople. There, St. Cassian was ordained a priest, after which he went to Marseilles, where he established the famous monastery of St. Victor. He reposed in peace about the year 433. The last of his writings was on the incarnation of the Lord against Nestorius, written in 430 at the request of Leo, the archdeacon of Pope Celestine. In this work he was the first to show the spiritual kinship between Pelagianism, which taught that Christ was a mere man who without help of God had avoided sin, and that it was possible for man to overcome sin by his own efforts, and Nestorianism, which taught that Christ was a mere man, and indeed, when Nestorius first became Patriarch of Constantinople in 428, he made such a show of persecuting the heretics with the exception only of the Pelagians, whom he received into communion and interceded for them to the emperor and to the Pope Celestine. The error opposed to Pelagianism equally ruinous was Augustine's teaching after the fall of man, that was so corrupt that he could do nothing for his own salvation, and that God simply predestined some men to salvation and others to damnation. So you have these two kind of polar opposites here. So on the one hand, you've got Pelagius that says, I don't need God. On my own, I can do whatever I want. I can achieve salvation without any help. Just willpower and determination. Grr. It's very, it's something that we as Americans would love. The idea of like, through my own grit and determination, I can do it. I don't need any help. And then on the other hand, you've got St. Augustine, who, again, he's not a saint because of the writings, because as we're going to see here, this is very troubling, very difficult. He has double-blind predestination, which basically says, whatever you do, it doesn't matter what you do, you're damned or you're blessed, it's the will of God. Sorry, doesn't matter what you do. Which means that you have no agency. So on the one, you have total agency, on the other, you have no agency. And here comes St. John Cassian, the Orthodox father, right in the middle, perfect person because he has the teachings of both the Far East, from all the way in Skete, and the Far West, all the way in Rome, and he brings the perfect Orthodox middle ground to understand, yes, we have agency, but it is not without God doing 99% of the work. We do have a part to play. When I was growing up in the South, I would always be asked, are you saved? Are you saved? And the answer that was given to me by a good church father was, I was saved, I am being saved, and I will be saved in the end, but I have a part to play in it. This was because part of the some Protestant understandings is the idea of like, once saved, always saved. So I was saved on January 3rd, 1936, so it doesn't matter what I do now, I'm saved. It's like, no. I have a part to play in it. My salvation is continual. It's a breathing action. St. John Cassian refuted this blasphemy in the 13th of his conferences with Abbot Charamon, which eloquently sets forth at length, with many citations of the Holy Scriptures, the Orthodox teaching of the balance between the grace of God on the one hand and man's efforts on the other hand, necessary for our salvation. St. Benedict of Nursia, in chapter 73 of his Rule, ranks St. Cassian's institutes and conferences first among the writings of the monastic fathers, and commands that they be read in his monasteries. Indeed, the Rule of St. Benedict is greatly indebted to the institutes of St. John Cassian. St. John Climacus also praises him highly in section 105 of step 4 of the Latter Divine Ascents on obedience. The image of God was faithfully preserved in you, O Father, for you took up the cross and followed Christ. By your actions you taught us to look beyond the flesh, for it passes, rather to be concerned about the soul which is immortal. Wherefore, O holy John Cassian, your soul rejoices with the angels. So as I said, we are going to skip over the prophecies of Isaiah and go straight back into Genesis. And God said, let there be light in the firmament in the heavens, and to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years, and let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. So this is the creation of the stars and the planets. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a fourth day. And God said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the firmament of the heavens. So this is, of course, how things would be. You'd first have insects. That would be the first thing. And then birds would be the first creature to kind of evolve out of that. So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves with which the water swarms, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply in the earth. And there was evening, and there was morning, a fifth day. And so we are continuing along the story of creation. And as I said, whether you believe in creationism or not, you can't deny that it is very, very similar to our understanding of the science of how life comes to be on planets and how evolution might have occurred to engender life on our planet. Continuing with Proverbs. Wisdom cries aloud in the streets. In the markets she raises her voice. On the top of the wall she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing, and fools hate knowledge? Give heed to my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my thoughts to you. I will make my words known to you. Because I've called, and you refuse to listen, have stretched out my hands, and no one has heeded, and you have ignored all my counsel, and would have none of my reproof. I will also laugh at your calamity. I will mock when panic strikes you. When panic strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. This, of course, is a quasi-reference to us when we don't listen to God, we don't listen to the church, and then when calamity hits us, whether it's sickness, whether it's something missing, whether we're in danger, whether we're hurt, and then suddenly we're crying to God. We have no relationship with God. We have no relationship with His church. Would you, out of nowhere, decide that you're going to answer the call of somebody that has been blatantly ignoring you? Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my counsel, and despised all my reproofs, therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way, and be sated with their own devices. You've heard the expression. You've made your bed, now you got to sleep in it. For the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But he who listens to me will dwell secure, and will be at ease without dread of evil. So in other words, when we trust in God, when we put our hope in Him, we don't have to have that anxiety. We can walk on the waters. I hope that you've enjoyed today's Spiritual Calisthenics. Have a blessed and wonderful day.